Good morning. Good morning. We doing good? Good. I'm not sure what he's going to want me to say and what we're doing. It's great to be back always, and I was here last week, of course, but Carol brought the message, great Father's Day message. I thought she did a great job, and so we're going to continue on in our series, but before we get to that, I do have something for you. Did you hear about the houses the houses next door to each other that fell in love? Yeah. It was a long-distance romance. All right, let me just say this. It was a long-distance... Okay, just to let you know, that was a bad dad joke. It went over better at Nobbinway, but anyway. It must be something of the intellect of the people when it comes to jokes there. No. Last week was Father's Day, and my daughter Jessica, all my girls sent me a text or something or called and said, Happy Father's Day. I got a really cute one for my granddaughter. Anyway, Jessica sent me a gift in the mail, and here it is. The very embarrassing book of dad jokes. Because your dad thinks he's hilarious. So, you need to understand something. I take this as encouragement and ammunition at the same time. So, I've got a bunch of them. I could tell you. No. So, anyway, so we're moving on. We're continuing in our series. This is what we do. And I want to do a little bit of review for us to keep us on the same page of where we were. It was 2 weeks ago that I preached and brought the message. And I had a two-part mini-series in this series called We Welcome Without Judgment. And I finished that 2 weeks ago. And so I want to kind of go back a little bit. But I know, and you need to know, I just want to make sure that you know this, that I believe that we are a very welcoming group of people. I really do. You guys wouldn't be here if we wouldn't be welcoming, because all of you were new at some point in time, and so therefore you came and you stayed, and so it's great to be that welcoming group of people. And I've heard many times from visitors, just today I left Nobbinway and said, man, I just can't tell you how welcoming I felt and loved I felt. And but the question always is to me, can we do better? And for some people say, well, aren't we doing good enough? Here's me. Here's my take on it. I look out at creation, at what God has created. I look at in the woods, animals, the lake, the oceans, the stars in the sky. He's done a pretty excellent job. And we serve an excellent God. And to say good enough to an excellent God, it just somehow so trivial, minimalizes what we can do. So I don't believe we can ever do good enough. The saying is, it's good enough who it's for, not for God. Not for God. We want to do the best we can, the very best we can. So I want to do the excellent. I want to be striving to do better. So the question comes, can we do better? Sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the answer is no, because the tools we have or whatever. But I think we always can strive to do better. And Ben Wise currently is doing an internship in Wausau, Wisconsin. And I want you to hear from Ben about his experience at a church that he attended in Wausau. Take a look at this video clip.
Hey everybody. I just wanted to share with you a story about the first time I went to my church out here in beautiful Wausau, Wisconsin. The name of it is Wausau Alliance Church. I walked in the door. Lots of smiling faces, and I was going to walk into the sanctuary, like someone might do, and I was stopped by a woman, and she said, have you ever been here? And I said, no, this is my first time. And she said, well, I just want to extend the warmest welcome to you. She said, I know how difficult it can be looking for a new church. We had some small talk, and we're getting close to time for the service. She says, follow me. So we go into the sanctuary, and she introduces me to a couple of guys my age, which was, it was weird for me to have someone leading me around, you know, but introduced myself, had some small talk, but of course she had to go back to the visitor welcome desk. So I sit down, you know, towards the middle of the sanctuary, and people are filling in. And halfway through a song, somebody sits to my right and kind of puts their hand on my arm, and I look over, and it was her and her husband, and she said, "Do you mind if we sit with you?" And I said, "Absolutely not." So they sat with me during the service. Afterwards, she said, "Come on, I'll introduce you to the pastor." So I went over and was able to meet him, and you know, it was like nothing I'd ever experienced. You know, when you go to a new church, like I never had that in Kalamazoo. I never had that happen on my last internship. So I was really just beside myself that someone would go that far out of their way to lead me into the sanctuary, to introduce me to people, to give me all the resources, to introduce me to the pastor. I mean, it was incredible. And I made sure to tell her on my way out. I said, her name is Maria Olson. I said, "Maria, you don't know how much that meant to me to have you, you know, show that kindness to me, and you made me feel more than welcome." So I immediately called my mom after church. I said, "You're not going to believe what happened to me." And I'm telling her the story, and she goes, "Well, how about that? Pastor Tim was just preaching on welcoming without judgment." And I'm just amazed. You know, it had to have been a God thing. So I've since gone back. Maria and her husband are still there. They weren't able to sit with me last week, but it was a good time when they did. So I'm looking forward to seeing all you guys in a couple weeks. Bye for now.
Isn't that good? I just think that he really felt very welcomed, and it was evident. I mean, he was excited. He called home, you know. And I wonder, is that something we can do? You know, is that something it takes? No, I don't think it takes a committee to say, we're going to do this and do that. I think it just takes somebody who has a heart to welcome people. And when a new person comes in, we say, introduce ourselves, leave. We always want to gravitate and have our little conversations with our friends and stuff, and that's all real and good. We are a Christian fellowship church, you know, and we do fellowship pretty good. But leave that and just zero in on the visitor and say, hey, introduce yourself and say, come sit with us today. You know, making somebody feel overly welcome is an incredible experience for that person. As you can see for Ben, you know, he'd been in different churches throughout his internship and experienced different things, but never to that level. And I think that lady, she felt called to that, and I just think that's pretty cool. And so maybe we need to think about that. Is that something that you as an individual just could take it upon yourself to do? You know, we have, I know Lester has been going around greeting people and stuff like that, but can we take it to another level? Can we go and say, we got a Keurig back here. Can we go and say, hey, let me get you a cup of coffee? You know, can we do something like that? I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out here. But to really go to an extreme in hospitality and welcoming people, I think that's what we do. You know, and it doesn't just start inside here on Sunday morning. It extends to outside these doors. But the real question is, can you do it? Can we do it? Can you and I be welcoming to people who are different than we are? Think about that. Can you be welcoming to somebody? I mean welcoming, truly, authentically welcoming to somebody who's not the same as you socially. Can you be welcoming to a person who's not politically aligned with you? They're the other party. Yeah, I see the nose. Ooh, they have cooties. Can you be welcoming to a person who's not economically aligned with you? Can you be welcoming to anyone who's not the same as you? That's the question, isn't it? Kathy and I came face to face with this in Florida this past year when I was walking down the street on her mom's street where her condo is, and out of a neighboring condo comes this person who was an old friend. Just goes I don't know how far back, goes way back. For Kathy, she goes back to childhood, I think. And this person comes out, and we greet each other, give each other a hug, and how you doing, and stuff like that, and great. And she had been up to the UP and visited, and she really liked it here. And she asked the question to me, and she said, we've thought about, she has a partner. And she said, we've thought about moving to a place like the UP, but can we? You know, and I admit, I was caught off guard a little bit, but I recovered nicely. I did a nice job of recovering. And I said, and it wasn't new for me or anything, and I said, to her, I said, well, my hope is that our people could be accepting of you. I really do. That's my hope. And I also came right out because we could be frank and honest with each other. We've been friends so long, which isn't that refreshing when you can be honest with somebody and still love them and they know they love you, and it's okay. I like that. And I said, while Kathy and I don't believe the same as you do in your lifestyle, and we're not the same place, understand now, her and her partner take mission trips. They love the Lord. They serve the Lord. But somehow we're just not aligned. Kathy had a nice, frank conversation with her about how that works and stuff, and you can talk to Kathy about that. But I said, even though we don't see eye to eye on this, I want you to know that Kathy and I love you and we care for you. And we still want to be friends, and you guys can come visit us anytime you want, Now her partner, I don't know her partner very well, but so that's a vague relationship for us because we don't really know her partner. But I just said I want her to know that we want the best for you. So we came face to face with people who are different than we are in beliefs and systems, but that was good, and it made me think about us. Made me think about our community. Made me think more than just this room, but about us in general. Can we welcome someone like that? I think that's a question. Would you invite her and her partner over for a meal? Would you be hospitable? Would you be welcoming to someone? The biggest question is not a person of like her necessarily, but anybody. Would you be welcoming of someone who's not like you? See, the thing we do is we gravitate toward people who are most like us. You take a room of 100 or 200 people, and pretty soon you got people huddling together that are most like each other. Mike over here, he'd pretty soon find somebody who worked at the railroad or likes to hunt or something. I mean, we just talk, and it just happens, and other people hear that, and it would just happen. Larry, he'd probably find somebody who likes bluegrass or was a teacher or something, and we just get together like that. Jeff, he'd be finding somebody who likes sailing or fishing, and he'd be talking about that. We're like people, but can we say, wait a minute, instead of me just always gravitating toward the people that make me comfortable, because that's what we do, right? They make me comfortable. I want to go and I'm going to welcome those people that aren't like me. Because I'll tell you this, if you want to be a doorway to Jesus Christ, you want to be a doorway to the cross, that means the people coming to the door are the people that don't know the cross, don't know Jesus. And you have to be welcoming and opening the door to Jesus. And we can't if we're building walls. It takes a doorway, not a wall. We need to be bridge builders, not wall builders, to people to coming into the kingdom, because you and I, if you know Jesus Christ as your Savior and Lord, if you're a follower of Jesus here today, you may be the person Jesus has said, Daryl, I want you to be my conduit today, and I want you to love that person. I want you to welcome that person. You might say, Al, today's your day. I want you to welcome that person. You may not like them in the flesh, but I love them. We need to see with the eyes of Jesus, because doesn't he love everybody? God is not wishing that any should perish, right? But that all should come to him. And so we need to be that door. We need to be people that are inclusively welcoming of other people. Okay, that's the recap. That's bringing you up to speed of what I did a couple weeks ago. And today, open your Bibles to John chapter 13, or look on your sheets, or open up your phone, or whatever you have. John 13. According to our title, we love without condition. According to that title, it's our commitment to you is to love you. Our commitment to love one another. It's our commitment to love those that God brings to us. Our commitment to love those people is to love without condition. Now, it's an unconditional love. And even though, how many know, we behave, sometimes we behave a little poorly, right? Sometimes we behave poorly. We're still going to be committed to love each other. You know, and sometimes this is put to the test. You know, James 3 says, for we all stumble in many ways. Tim Miller doesn't have it right. And I guarantee you guys don't have it right either. Sometimes we just don't act like followers of Jesus. Sometimes the flesh gets in the way. It's reality. It's not an excuse. It's just reality. Until you get in touch with reality, you can't change that. So that being true, that sometimes we do that, then disappointing each other isn't a maybe. It's an inevitable. You know, it's just going to happen. Some of you are going to disappoint me. I'm going to disappoint you. But can we love each other? Can we care for each other? You know? Shoot, I've disappointed Kathy for 37 years, and she doesn't know any better yet. She still loves me. Hot dog, I picked right. She picked right. Anyway, understand that when we can really say to each other that we love without condition, and then that's really, really true, that's really happening when we start seeing that happen, and I think we see it on different levels already, but when we really see that happening, I'll tell you what, these chairs are going to be more than full. Because that old song, What the World Needs Now is Love, is very true. There are people that are looking for love in all the wrong places, and they don't trust the church because sometimes the church has been so unlovely to them and not welcoming to them and very judgmental to them. And I say we need to tear that stuff down, and we need to say, no, we don't do that here. We want to welcome you, and we'll love you. And when we do that, we can fill the chairs. And when we do those things, I believe CFC, Christian Fellowship Churches, become a highly impacting church family in Mackinac County, and people will know about it. I really do. You might think, well, Tim, you're crazy. We're in Rexton right now, you know, and I don't care. I really don't care where we're at, because people gravitate to people who take them in and love them. They really do. I really believe that. Unconditional love is not something you can find just anywhere. There's a lot of conditions put on love. If you do this, if you act this way, I'll love you. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. Listen, I don't think we should also be able to think of a single person who would not receive a welcoming, non-judgmental, unconditional, loving embrace if they came to sit right behind us here at church. You know, if we think of people, I would hope that we would say that, hey, they're going to be welcomed in such a way. You remember David Brown? David Brown? How many people remember David Brown? Yeah. David Brown went to be with the Lord. He went home 4 years ago, March 17th, 2015. So, but David Brown, before he came to Jesus, you know, he was, he was a scoundrel, right? I mean, he was a scoundrel. Anybody who has state police can show up at the doorstep any night of the day, you know. Anyway, he was a rascal. But he got to know Jesus Christ as his Savior, and he got to know him in the cell of a jail. And when he came out, he became a fire-breathing follower of Jesus that loved everybody. And one of the funniest things was, you know, Big Dave was big. And when he got to know Jesus, he wanted you to know Jesus. And he would come to church. He attended over at Nobbaway. He would come in, and he would give people hugs. I'm telling you what, he broke ice. Like, he was just hugging everybody. And I remember one Sunday, he went up to give somebody a hug. And he just always did it, gave people big hugs. And he went to give this guy a hug. The guy says, I don't do that. He goes, you do now. He grabbed him and hugged him. It was just hilarious. But if you know Dave, he was kind of a gentle giant. He just loved people. And I think of that, and we should be working at those types of things. I'm not saying that we got to be a hugging church or anything like that, but we should be working at making people feel welcomed, feel loved. We welcome without judgment. We love without condition. In John 13, I believe over the past number of years, this verse has really been revelation to me, revelatory to me in different ways. And I think you've gotten to see the importance of this verse for us. But the thing is, what I say here many times leaks. When you guys leave here, somehow it just kind of starts seeping out of the cranium and it leaks, or the black hole in the parking lot sometimes sucks it in. So I want to keep repeating this till we get these. These are the final words of Jesus. I'm going to start in chapter 13 of John, verse 31. It says here, now, when he had gone out, now Jesus and the disciples were in the upper room. They just had their Passover meal, and so and he was still teaching them, still talking to them. It says, when he had gone out, Jesus said, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and glorify him at once. Little children, yet a little while I am with you. You will see me, and just as I said to the Jews, so now I also say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. A new commandment I give you. What's the new commandment? That you love one another. Then he brings us to how. How do we do this? Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. Well, the question comes in, why is this so important? By this, by what? By how we love one another in the name of Jesus. By we love one another in the way Jesus loved us. By this, all people, that's the entire world. That's not just a group of people here and a group of people here. That's all people. By the way you love people, by the way you love others, as Jesus did, the entire world, all people will know that you are my disciples. Now here comes a condition. When you see the word if in the Bible, a lot of times it means there's a condition coming along with it. If you do this, if you do that. God says, if you do this, I will bless you. If you do that, you'll find my wrath, basically, if you do these things. So here's the condition. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples if, condition, you have love for one another. That's how you do it. It's not a very long passage, but I think it's very revelatory. And I don't think there's anything in the Bible that Jesus said that's as important as this. This is the new commandment. This is on the last night he was on the earth. So there's several things here. I'm going to give you notes next week. We can take notes on these things next week, but for right now, you don't have any. Just sit back. One of the things that we need to learn to do is embrace love as a priority. Love needs to become the priority in our lives. The summary of the law, Jesus was asked by a lawyer, how to summarize the law, and he said, which is the greatest commandment in the law? He's trying to trick Jesus. And he said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. He says, this is the greatest and foremost commandment. But then he says, the second is like it. Not quite there, but it's pretty much like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself, period. Basically, he's saying, listen, you got all these laws, all these commandments. You get these two, you're doing all right. I mean, doesn't that help make being a follower of Jesus easier? To say, you get these two, you got it all right. How many know that so often we make Christianity tough? We make it hard. Well, you got to do this, you got to do that. No, you can't do that. But, hey, listen, love God, love others. It's just that easy. If you love God, you're going to do things that please him. If you love others, you're pleasing God. It's just that simple. Over and over in the New Testament, some 250 times, love is mentioned. And in the New Testament writers, over and over, find a new way to say the same thing. This is everything. embracing love as a priority in our lives. You know, we can be incredibly welcoming here. You can be incredibly welcoming outside the doors. But if you don't genuinely love others, if we don't get this, how many know that people can see a phony a mile away? You know, and if you've got this phony love, phony welcome, they're going to see it. People do that. If we don't get this, we try to fake this, we fail at it. Okay, go back to the beginning of John 13. Let's go back there. I should have probably gone there but I wanted to get this up. At the beginning, it says, just before the Passover feast, the last night of Jesus' life, Jesus knew this time had come for him to leave the world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, look at this. He now showed them the full extent of his love. So here it is. What he's going to do this night with his closest followers, with the 12, the ones who had walked with him for 3.5 years, knowing that at this time the next day he would be crucified. Think about that. He's now going to show them the full extent of his love. So as the disciples are moving from the upper room to the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus comes up with this thing, a new commandment I'm going to give you. Some final instructions. Now, wouldn't you think that the final instructions would be kind of like a review? You know, I mean, the disciples are going, well, he says, I'm going to give you a new commandment I'm giving you. Wait a minute. I thought he's going to review this whole thing before he gives us in charge. You know, what's he doing here? He pulls up this new commandment. It surprises him. Are we hearing you right? Why is he saying this? This is the last night he's going to live. This is the Lord's Supper. And as I said before, according to Luke, the disciples they left the upper room. They're walking out toward the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus is kind of walking in after them, and he comes in and he hears them arguing, according to Luke. They're arguing. You know what they're arguing about? Not about who can serve Jesus, not about who can do this. It's about who's going to be the greatest. Think about that. He just had the Passover meal with them. He just washed their feet. And they're all puffed up on themselves, and they're just not getting it. To try to understand this a little bit better, he gave this command, and think of this. Why he gave this command. Think of this. The God of the universe puts on human flesh. And these 12 did more with him than anyone. They sat around his campfire for 3.5 years. They slept out in the wilderness, slept in homes for 3.5 years. They ate meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner with him for some 3.5 years. They saw miracle after miracle for some 3.5 years. Now imagine being Jesus and thinking, you're going to entrust the revolution to these 12. It had to be discouraging for him sometimes, right? But he picked them. He chose these guys. Can you imagine it's the very last night that you're on earth and you're thinking that this is the group that's going to take the message to the masses, and the number one point on their agenda is who's going to be the greatest? I'm Jesus. I'm going, really? Are they ever going to get this stuff? Jesus might go, he was Jewish, Hebrew, right? He might go, oy vey. No, I don't think so. See, understanding this is important because it came on that last night. It came around the Lord's Supper, and it came at a time when they're arguing after the Passover, but after he washed their feet. What an awesome image of servanthood. And loving them for who they are. Jesus' number one reason for this command was this, simply this. I'm not going to be with you always. I'm not going to be here. And you're going to need my physical, I won't be with you physically, but you're going to need to look into my eyes at some time and be reassured that's okay. You're going to need an arm around your shoulder. You're going to need somebody to gently rebuke you at times. You're going to need a physical body where Jesus is in them, can give you what you need. People need Jesus. And he's calling us to be his hands and his feet to other people. I think this command, taken seriously, gets rid of discipleship sibling rivalry. Who's the greatest? Churches still have trouble with that. People, and the problem is people. The churches are okay until people walk in, right? The problem is always people get all bent out of shape. This command means that we see others as Jesus sees them. This is a new commandment, and what they're to do, the idea of trying to be the greatest just gets cut right down. Verse 35 says what? It says, by this, by what? By the extent you all, by the authenticity, you all audibly, honestly love one another. All men will know that you're my disciples if you love one another. He says, everything I've taught you, all the promises I've made, all hinges on something, and it's you guys modeling this message for other people. If it doesn't work in your life, it's not going to work anywhere. That's why this command, it became the most important. Jesus is talking about love. Remember, this series right now is about us. It's about us being us. It's about us. This is what we do. Say that with me. This is what we do. We're going to love others as Jesus loved others. We're going to love others without condition. There's a song I really like called Testify to Love. I like the words. It's a great song. And I was looking for this, and I came across the video of this song. So I'm going to show you this clip here in just a second. But this is a clip of an old TV show, Touched by an Angel. Remember? Yeah. You guys are all old enough to remember that. Josie doesn't remember. Take her back down memory lane sometime, Mom. Touched by an Angel. Anyway, in this Roma Downey, in this clip here, a little boy, Petey, is sick terminally, and he had a bucket list of sorts, and they were helping him through this bucket list, and they decided he needed to see how much he was loved, how much he's cared for in this into this clip. So take a look at this. Listen to the words of the song.
All the colors of the rainbow, all the voices of the wind, every dream that reaches out to find where love begins. Every word of every story, every star in every sky, every corner of creation lives to testify. For as long as I shall live, I will testify to love. Be a witness in the silences of words are not enough. With every breath I take, we'll give thanks to God above. For as long as I shall live, I will testify to love. From the mountains to the valley, from the rivers to the sea, every hand that reaches out, every hand that reaches out to offer peace, every simple act of mercy, every step the kingdom come, all the hope in every heart will speak what love has done. It's finished now. For as long as I shall live, I will testify to love. I'll be a witness in the silence.
Yes, it is finished.
Every breath I take,
Coming too.
thought it was kind of neat when that flag earlier said Petey lives here. Now it said Petey lived here after the dove flew by. But isn't that it? That we can be a testify to love in our life for other people. Be a testimony for love. The principle is simply this. You can succeed at 1,000 things, but if you fail at this, you're failing. If you're failing relationally, you're failing. We need to love. Unconditionally love. And I want everybody here to know that you are loved. I love you. We have a Father in heaven who loves you. And there's moments when we don't feel like he loves us very much, but I found in my life those moments are when I've walked away, not him. He is faithful. He is to the end. And everybody here needs to know he loves you very much, enough to send his own son Jesus to the cross to take our place. That's love. And he still loves us.